Picture this. You've finally settled into the coziest chair in your living room after tidying up the kitchen, and you gently rub your arm, only to notice those patches of dry, itchy skin that just don't seem to go away. If you're over 70, you might have assumed that persistent eczema flare-ups are simply part of the package. Maybe you've tried various creams and even changed your laundry detergent. Yet the itching and red patches linger, sometimes robbing you of a good night's sleep. Here's a question that might surprise you. What if the familiar advice, just moisturize more, overlooks a critical piece of the puzzle, namely finding a gentle but effective topical steroid that suits an older, often more delicate skin structure? For many seniors, the first reaction to the word steroid is caution, and rightly so. You might have heard that steroids can thin your skin or cause side effects, which can be particularly worrying when you're already dealing with the realities of aging. But what if there are low-risk, carefully formulated topical steroids that can actually help soothe stubborn eczema without the risks you may have feared? It turns out there are, and understanding them could make the difference between living with constant discomfort and reclaiming the confidence to wear short sleeves, swim, or simply enjoy each day without that nagging itch. Addressing eczema at this stage in life isn't merely about comfort, though relief from persistent itching is a game changer in itself. It's also about maintaining skin integrity to guard against infections, protecting overall health, and preserving a sense of well-being. Chronic irritation can lead to secondary issues like broken skin or even stress that affects your mood, your sleep, and your overall quality of life. In other words, finding effective, low-risk treatments isn't just nice to have. It's a meaningful step toward preserving your independence and happiness. Our conversation today centers on 5 such topical steroids that have been commonly identified as gentle options for seniors and older adults. Along the way, we'll explore some widespread misconceptions, like the idea that all topical steroids cause more harm than good. We'll look at how you can overcome fears around side effects by working closely with healthcare providers and applying best practices at home. My goal is to help you discover new avenues of relief so that you can return to the daily activities you love without the constant worry about irritating your skin. By the time we wrap up, you'll have a well-rounded view of how the right topical steroid, used properly and in conjunction with other supportive habits, can transform your eczema management, especially if you've been battling the condition for years. We'll discuss how gentle formulations can protect thinning skin, which steps you can take to avoid overuse, and how to integrate complementary self-care measures for even better results. Of course, you'll still want to talk with your doctor or pharmacist about individual concerns and potential interactions, but you'll be better equipped to start that conversation. Now, as you listen, keep a mental checklist of any myths you've heard, maybe from friends, maybe even from outdated information, and see if these points will challenge or reinforce what you already know. If something resonates with you, it might be the nudge you need to talk to a healthcare professional about making a simple yet powerful change in your routine. Are you ready to discover the possibilities of gentle but effective relief? Let's explore these options together. First, let's tackle a commonly held belief. All topical steroids cause skin thinning, so I should never use them. Many older adults, especially those over 70, shy away from any steroid-based cream out of fear. Take Richard, who is 75 and lives alone in a cozy apartment. He has had eczema since he was in his 40s, but in the last decade, it's flared up more often. He remembers a cousin who used strong steroid ointments in her youth and ended up with permanent skin damage on her hands. Richard vowed he'd rather live with the itch than risk the same outcome. Here's the twist. Not all topical steroids are created equal. There are different potency levels, which basically means how strong the steroid effect is on your skin. Hydrocortisone, 1% for instance, is often considered a mild option and is available even over the counter in many places. Doctors often suggest it as a first step for mild to moderate eczema, especially if you have sensitive or mature skin. Of course, mild doesn't mean you can ignore directions. You still need to apply it exactly as prescribed or recommended by a pharmacist. But it does tend to carry fewer risk of thinning skin compared to high-potency steroids. To put this into perspective, imagine having a gentle garden hose versus a high-pressure washer. Both use water, but they deliver it in vastly different intensities. The garden hose won't blast away your delicate flowers, while the high-pressure washer could. Hydrocortisone 1% is like that gentle hose. When seniors learn there are milder forms of these medications, they often breathe a sigh of relief, realizing they don't have to suffer through daily itching and redness just to avoid skin damage. If you're thinking about giving a mild steroid like hydrocortisone a try, you'd want to start by talking to your healthcare provider. Ask questions like, how long should I use this cream? Or, should I apply it to damp skin? Proper use matters. For example, some dermatologists recommend applying a thin layer after a bath or shower when your skin is slightly damp to help the medication absorb effectively. Many people also layer a moisturizer on top once the steroid has had a chance to settle in. The payoff can be significant. By calming eczema flare-ups, you're not only addressing the physical discomfort, you're also gifting yourself better sleep, improved mood, and the freedom to choose that nice short-sleeve shirt without hesitation. Yes, the emotional lift of seeing clearer, calmer skin can be just as important as the physical relief. Keep in mind, though, that consistency is key. Even gentle steroids need time to work, and using them sporadically or incorrectly can limit their benefits. Now, if you've ever relied on home remedies or stronger steroid creams for quick fixes, you might wonder if mild creams are really enough for tougher patches. That's understandable. But before jumping to high-potency products, it's worth exploring whether a mild solution can do the trick. Remember, you can always discuss stepping up to a slightly stronger cream if results are insufficient. It's much harder, however, to reverse accidental damage from an overly potent steroid. Start low and slow. That's often the best strategy for seniors. If this has sparked any memories or experiences of your own, don't hesitate to share. Sometimes hearing from others who face the same hesitation can help us feel more confident about exploring new treatments. Let's move on to the next point, because there's more to learn about low-risk options for your skin's comfort and health. Another common assumption among seniors is that all topical steroids, even mild ones, are a hassle to manage alongside my other medications. This misconception can discourage many older adults from trying anything new. Let's consider the experience of Gloria, who is 80 and has been managing multiple prescriptions for arthritis, high blood pressure, and a thyroid condition. She's so used to juggling pills and doctor visits that the prospect of adding yet another prescription, even a topical one, felt overwhelming. She believed it would complicate her medication schedule and might interact negatively with her existing regimen. However, gentle steroids like Desonide cream are specifically formulated to reduce systemic absorption, meaning they're less likely to circulate through your body in large amounts. That's one reason they're often labeled low risk. Unlike your blood pressure pills that course through your entire system, these creams target the skin area where they're applied. Of course, there is always a need for caution, especially for people who have multiple health conditions. Yet for many seniors, Desonide has proven to be a solid middle ground option between the ultra-mild hydrocortisone and the more potent treatments. In Gloria's case, her dermatologist explained that using Desonide wouldn't significantly add to her daily regimen. The cream was to be applied just twice a day, morning and evening, much like brushing her teeth. There was also advice about applying a moisturizer afterwards, which she saw as a nice self-care ritual. She discovered that the best way to avoid confusion was to keep her topical treatments in a separate place from her oral medications, perhaps on her bedside table, while her pills stayed in the kitchen cabinet. That simple organizational tweak made all the difference. A key point here is that low risk doesn't mean no monitoring. If you're dealing with other health conditions or take multiple medications, let your primary doctor or a pharmacist know when you introduce a new topical steroid. Often the main concern is the overall burden on your body's organs if something were to be absorbed. But with Desonide, absorption is minimal, especially if you're applying it correctly to intact, not open or severely broken skin. The emotional benefit of finding an option like this can't be overstated. Gloria found relief not just from the physical itch, but also from the mental toll of thinking she was adding one more complicated layer to her life. Eczema can already feel like a burden. Nobody needs additional stress about whether their treatments might conflict with their blood pressure medication or arthritis drugs. With clear communication among healthcare providers, seniors can confidently incorporate a mild to moderate potency steroid without feeling overwhelmed. If you're nodding your head, thinking about your own medication list, you might want to pause and jot down any concerns or questions right now. This is exactly the kind of conversation to have with your healthcare team. They can help you tailor a plan that keeps things as simple as possible while still effective. Speaking of effectiveness, let's move on to the next option, which may surprise you if you've ever thought that age automatically equals thinner, more fragile skin that can't handle any type of steroid. A prevalent myth is that after 70, your skin is too delicate for any steroid use. Period. This black and white thinking can be especially strong for those who've seen how aging skin bruises or tears more easily. Let's look at Arthur's story to see why the reality is more nuanced. Arthur is 78, a retired teacher who enjoys gardening and gentle walks. He developed eczema around his elbows and knees, areas that rub against clothing more often. His biggest worry was that applying any steroid would make his skin even more prone to tears, something he's already noticed happening if he bumps into a table. Enter alclometasone dipropionate, often considered a low to medium potency steroid that's specifically noted for being relatively gentle, yet still effective for chronic eczema patches. Arthur's dermatologist explained that while it's stronger than hydrocortisone, it's still classified under the lower end of the steroid strength spectrum. The key difference is that it's formulated to deeply calm inflammation without aggressively thinning the skin over short-term or moderate use periods. The reason this can work for seniors is all about the balance of potency and the frequency of application. Arthur was instructed to apply a very thin layer once daily for about 2 weeks, then gradually taper off to see if the flare-ups were under control. This approach, sometimes referred to as stepping down, allows you to use enough medication to see real improvements, but not so much that you risk unnecessary side effects. If Arthur had used a super potent steroid at full strength for a long period, the risk of thinning or bruising might have been real. But with a thoughtfully chosen product like alclometasone, combined with sensible usage guidelines, he found the relief he needed without undue complications. Arthur was pleasantly surprised to notice fewer red, itchy patches, and crucially, he didn't see a spike in skin fragility. This relief not only helped him physically but also emotionally. He felt comfortable returning to his backyard tomato plants and even started wearing short sleeves again. The take-home message, it's less about age alone and more about selecting the right medication for your skin condition and following a well-monitored plan. This doesn't mean you should dismiss concerns about skin thinning. It's absolutely valid to keep an eye on how your skin reacts. If you notice bruising or thinning, it's important to contact your doctor promptly. Also, remember that each person's skin biology is unique. The advice that worked for Arthur might need to be tweaked for you. But this is precisely why partnership with a trusted healthcare provider is invaluable. Take a moment to reflect. Have you avoided topical steroids entirely because you believed your age automatically disqualified you from safe usage? Maybe you'll be inspired by Arthur's experience to reconsider that assumption. A quick check-in with your doctor might reveal that there's a well-matched product out there that can offer real relief with minimal risks. Let's pause here to see how you're feeling about these first 3 options. Does any of this resonate with your personal experiences or concerns? Sometimes it helps to write down a quick note or question so you can bring it up later with your healthcare team. Up next, we'll look at another low-risk topical steroid option that specifically addresses the fear of strong side effects. An understandable worry when dealing with medication at any age, but especially as you grow older. Some seniors firmly believe if a steroid doesn't sting or burn, it probably isn't working. This misconception is rooted in the idea that potent sensations indicate potency in treatment. But consider the case of Marion, 73, who'd been using an over-the-counter eczema ointment that caused an intense burning sensation. She assumed it meant the product was getting the job done. Yet her skin remained inflamed, and she grew even more frustrated. Mometasone furoate, in its lower potency forms or diluted preparations, is a good example of a medication that defies the notion that feeling it means it's effective. When used in moderate strength or as part of a carefully guided plan, mometasone can be highly effective without causing undue burning or stinging. In many instances, it's formulated to minimize irritation, focusing instead on reducing the underlying inflammation that triggers flare-ups. This factor alone can be a relief for seniors who dread the idea of any additional discomfort. Let's delve into how Marion found success. After consulting with her dermatologist, she switched from a random, over-the-counter cream to a prescription for a milder preparation of mometasone to be applied once a day. Almost immediately, she noticed that the stinging was gone. She worried at first that no discomfort meant no results, but her doctor reassured her that a lack of burning doesn't equate to lack of efficacy, especially when it comes to well-researched topical steroids. Within 2 weeks, Marion saw a noticeable reduction in redness around her wrists and ankles, and she wasn't pacing around her living room, waiting for the burning to subside. This experience taught her a valuable lesson. Real relief comes from decreasing inflammation, not from overstimulating your skin. Seniors in particular can benefit from formulations that are gentle enough to avoid compounding the sensitivity or dryness that often accompany aging skin. Mometasone, especially in its milder versions, tends to strike that balance quite well. Additionally, Marion found emotional relief in no longer bracing herself for that unpleasant burning sensation every time she applied the cream. Imagine going through a day free of the anxiety that comes from dreading your own medication routine. That kind of mental relief can be just as important as physical improvements. In fact, the emotional ease often leads to better consistency in following the treatment plan, because who wants to avoid something that actually feels soothing? Before jumping to the final point, let's take a quick moment to address how crucial it is to use these creams only on the areas that truly need them. Even a moderate potency steroid can cause issues if slathered on too broadly or used for too long. A good rule of thumb is to follow the fingertip unit guideline. Measure the cream from the tip of your index finger to the first joint, and that amount usually covers a small area, like a palm-sized patch of skin. This helps prevent using more than you need. If you're finding this information intriguing, or if it's rattling some long-held assumptions, you're not alone. A lot of older adults discover that exploring moderate options like mometasone can be the key to sustained, gentle relief. As always, double-check with a healthcare professional before making any big changes, especially if you have multiple skin concerns or chronic conditions that demand careful medication coordination. Now let's proceed to our fifth and final point on low-risk topical steroids, aiming to dispel yet another myth that might be holding you back from the eczema relief you deserve. Lastly, there's a deeply rooted myth that says, you can't use topical steroids for longer than a week or two, so what's the point in starting? Many older adults, after hearing warnings about side effects, believe that all steroids have to be short-term fixes. While caution is absolutely warranted, especially with higher potency formulas, certain lower strength options can be used for more extended periods under the guidance of a healthcare provider. One such option is low-strength triamcinolone acetonide, known for balancing effective anti-inflammatory benefits with a relatively mild impact on the skin when used properly. Consider Jean, a 76-year-old who struggled with persistent eczema on her hands and around her ears. A tricky spot to treat. She'd been told by well-meaning friends that topical steroids are only safe for a short sprint, and then you have to stop cold turkey. Worried about rebound flare-ups, she resigned herself to living with the condition, especially since these were areas that flared up unpredictably. Her dermatologist introduced her to a lower potency version of triamcinolone and suggested a maintenance approach. The plan was to use the cream consistently for about 2 weeks to bring the flare under control, then taper to a few times a week to keep inflammation at bay. Over several months, Jean noticed that while the eczema wasn't 100% gone, her flare-ups were vastly reduced in frequency and intensity. She didn't have to do this dramatic on and off routine. Instead, she found a balanced schedule that suited her skin's needs. To clarify, long-term use of any topical steroid, even low-potency ones, requires monitoring. You'll want to check in periodically with your dermatologist or primary doctor to ensure you're not experiencing side effects like skin thinning or bruising. But it's a misconception that you have to use these creams for just 1 or 2 weeks and never return. Many seniors find that carefully planned, low-dose maintenance therapy provides ongoing relief that dramatically improves their quality of life. Jean's story also highlights a broader emotional benefit. Consistency can bring peace of mind. Rather than bracing for flare-ups and scrambling for relief every time they appear, she had a routine that felt stable. This stability reduced her stress, which in turn can help reduce eczema flare-ups because stress is often a big trigger. If you're somebody who's tried short bursts of topical steroid use, only to see your eczema come roaring back, you might consider discussing a maintenance approach with your healthcare provider. Have a candid conversation about your fears of side effects and see if a lower potency intermittent schedule might work for you. Just remember that every individual's skin and medical history are unique. What works for Jean might need to be adjusted for your personal situation, but it's certainly worth exploring if you're tired of living in flare-up limbo. Now that we've covered these 5 gentle yet powerful options, hydrocortisone, disinide, alclometasone, mometasone in milder forms, and low-potency triamcinolone, it's time to pull everything together and discuss how you can take action responsibly and confidently. Because while knowledge is a game changer, putting it into practice is what truly transforms your day-to-day life. When you look back at what we've covered, you might notice a common thread. The idea that steroid isn't a one-size-fits-all term. There's a broad spectrum of potencies, formulations, and application strategies that can be tailored to the unique needs of seniors. Far from being an all-or-nothing proposition, topical steroid use can be nuanced, manageable, and surprisingly gentle when approached correctly. Think about how each of the seniors in these stories, Richard, Gloria, Arthur, Marion, and Jean, overcame a specific misconception. Richard realized not all steroids automatically lead to skin damage. Gloria learned she could juggle a new topical medication without sabotaging her existing medication regimen. Arthur found an option that respected the delicacy of aging skin without sacrificing efficacy. Marion discovered that relief doesn't have to come with a stinging price tag, and Jean proved that a careful maintenance schedule could deliver real, lasting improvement. If you've been hesitant about exploring topical steroids, consider the urgency of reclaiming your comfort and peace of mind sooner rather than later. Chronic eczema doesn't just affect your skin, it can disrupt your sleep, dampen your social life, and even undermine your sense of independence. The longer you wait, the harder it may be to break the cycle of inflammation and discomfort. But there's no need for fear-mongering. Instead, imagine the possibilities of being able to wear short sleeves on a sunny day without worrying about unsightly red patches or of drifting off to sleep without that persistent itch demanding your attention. There are multiple ways you can act on this information. For the more cautious viewer, a simple first step might be scheduling a quick consultation with your pharmacist or primary care physician to ask if a low-potency topical steroid is right for you. If you're feeling bolder, you might request a referral to a dermatologist specializing in senior skincare, ensuring you get a highly personalized treatment plan. And for those of you who love community support, you could even bring up these insights in a local seniors health group or online forum to hear how others are managing their eczema successfully. Remember, the key is to do all of this in conjunction with professional guidance. While these 5 low-risk topical steroids are widely recognized as safe options, individual health factors, like existing conditions and other medications, should always be considered. This is about empowerment, not self-prescription. Approach the conversation with a sense of partnership, and you'll likely find professionals eager to help you navigate an effective yet gentle treatment path. No matter where you find yourself in this journey, maybe you're just starting to see the first patches of eczema, or perhaps you've battled it for decades, take heart. You have more control and more options than you might have assumed. Today can be the day you open the door to a real, positive shift in how you manage eczema. Because at this stage in life, every day of comfort counts, and no one should have to endure unnecessary itching or discomfort. You've earned the wisdom that comes with experience, and now you have the knowledge to back it up when it comes to treating eczema more effectively. With the right approach and a trusted healthcare partnership, you can finally put aside the fear of topical steroids and embrace them as a valuable tool in your self-care toolkit. Here's to healthier, happier skin at any age.